controversial topic today. Are there such things as starter parrots? Hi, I'm Kaylin. Welcome to the bond. Welcome to the Parrot Bliss Bond. These are my mech monsters, Kailani and Cami. Kailani is a Catalina macaw, and Cami on my shoulder is a Harlequin macaw. And these girls are going to help me illustrate why people sometimes categorize parrots as starter parrots. These big monster beaks, I don't know, would they qualify? Are these starter parrots? So we're going to talk about how we're going to define a starter parrot and why, and then we're going to talk about a couple of good parrots that would fall into the category of a starter parrot by those definitions. So let's get going. Now, what you need to know about these mech monsters is that they infringe upon my husband and I and my daughter. Why? Because they do things like take over the camera. They do things like take over the backyard. Their big monster cage takes a lot of space, and then they make a mess. Even when they're in their cage, they get their food all over the place. These big monster beaks are huge, and what you would need to know about them if you were thinking about getting a macaw parrot is that in addition to the fact that these are big birds that need to fly around like they can do out here, you would need to know that those beaks can break open a walnut, they can break open a coconut, and they can certainly break off something like a finger. Now, a little known fact is that the mob, or the mafia, whatever you want, first learned how to abuse people by watching parrots. Yes, that's right. Parrots, bit people and left them black and blue, bit their lip open, bruised their bodies, and all those bad guys, they were like, now I know what to do. Now, that's a complete fabrication, but it could very well be true because there are people who really get injured by their parrots. I mean, like, you could end up having to go to an ER. You could certainly end up black, blue, and have your finger cut off. I would say that a parrot's bite certainly would be a category, see, that you need to think about and consider when you're looking at whether or not your parrot or the parrot you're looking at getting is a starter parrot or not. Now that I have been overtaken, this video has been completely walked on and practically eaten. Let's switch to some other parrots and talk about some other categories and talk about, therefore, how it is that people categorize starter parrots. When it comes to talking about whether or not a parrot is a starter parrot, I looked at a couple of things that I think are really significant. A parrot's bite, because parrots really vary in size and therefore their bite does too. A parrot's attitude, because some parrots really have an attitude and others are like more sweet and loving, generally speaking. There's their bonding inclination, because some parrots don't really bond. They're independent, and if you want a parrot that you can cuddle on and love on, that's not going to be an eclectus. You'll be disappointed, and you might get bitten if you try. Then there's also their needs, and being able to understand and meet those needs makes a really big difference. So those are the four categories that I'm going to talk about. Now, first, I'm going to tell you that I think that one of the things, or one of the reasons people say there's no such thing as a starter parrot, because when I've done videos, for example, is my Hans macaw a good starter parrot? I've had people in the comments say there's no such thing. And I want to talk about where I'm guessing that that's coming from, why I think they say that. Now, I think they say that because a goldfish is a pet that just requires, they're low maintenance. They don't require much. Fresh water, clean bowl every now and then kind of thing, and food. Now, parrots are very different to that, aren't you? And so I think that when people say there's no such thing as a starter parrot, I think that they're meaning that you really have to take care of a parrot. If you get a parrot, no matter what kind of parrot you have, and there's no starter in the sense that they are all high maintenance. I totally agree with that. I think parrots are not for everyone. They are high maintenance. They do, one of my categories, have a lot of needs, and meeting those needs can be very easy, giving them fresh water every day, or very challenging, meeting their social needs. Some parrots in the wild live in flocks of 20,000 birds, and so giving them enough to fulfill their social need in your home is probably impossible, because I'm guessing you don't have 19,000 other people or parrots for them to hang out with. So, it's really important to look at these things and kind of consider and understand what a parrot is all about in order to know whether or not you're going to be able to help them. Help them be a good pet, if you will. Now, we talked about a parrot's bite, and I showed you my macaws because you can see with those big, massive beaks that their bite is really significant. On the other hand, a smaller parrot, their bite's, still not going to be fun, a walk in the park, and they can still make you bleed, but it's just not the same. It's not going to send you to the ER. Next, their attitude. Some parrots really have an attitude. How is that? With some parrots, they think they are out to conquer the world. I talk about parrotlets as having a Napoleon complex, and frankly, they aren't the only ones. Amazons, for example, on the other hand, they're really loud, and my Lorenza, my yellow-naped Amazon, she's totally throwing you off. When I first got her, I was like, Amazons, I know they're supposed to be really loud, but Lorenza's not bad. Sure, we could get another one. Right? And then they're loud. But they're very loving. They do pick only one person, generally speaking, most of the time. They have one bonded buddy. It can be another parrot or a human. And then everyone else is on their mafia list, as in the people they are going to teach the mafia how to behave with. Yes, Amazons can have the most loving, sweet, affectionate, bonding, cuddly attitude. You can imagine when you're the one person, everyone else is going to get nothing but bites and the evil eye and the fanned tail of darkness and the hissing of parrot doom upon them. That's the way it works. So would I say that an Amazon is a good parrot for a family with small children? Oh gosh, no. I would hate to see the small kids possibly upset the Amazon, but sometimes it's a match made in heaven. A lot of the times it can be a problem because if the Amazon isn't bonded to one of the kids, and even if it is, everyone else in the family, like another kid, man, they could be on the hit list, and that could be trouble. That's not where you want to start. You don't want to have a bad experience with your first parrot. You definitely want to have a good experience. Same goes with a parrot's ability to bond. When it comes to bonding, there are some species that are just very bond oriented. They really love their mate, and actually, like these green-cheek conures, they don't mind making room beyond their mate for you as a human as well. They are so likely to have a great attitude, like green-cheek conures. Hi, sweetie. To be loving, to be affectionate, to want to cuddle with you. And that makes for a parrot that's easier to have the first time around. That beak is not going to take your finger off. Can you imagine? Oh, and their attitude, there are some green-cheek conures with an attitude, I know. But there are a lot of green-cheek conures that just seem to be really sweet, really cuddly, really affectionate. Then, a parrot species like a green-cheek conure, they're so good at bonding. It's so easy to bond with them. You don't have to understand parrot psychology, so to speak. in order to be able to create a bond the way you would with some other species. Depending on the species and depending on the parrot's history, granted. But the bottom line is parrots have very different needs, which have a lot of commonalities, but are very different depending upon their species. And it makes it so that when you're not already familiar with what a parrot's like, with the fact that, for example, parrots experience everything with their beak because they don't have a hand, so they often bite first. And it's not necessarily a bite. Sometimes it's just holding on. Sometimes it's almost like touching something. Therefore, it's so helpful to start with a parrot that is going to be easier and a better introduction to understanding a parrot's needs, to understanding all of the facets of a parrot, to understanding, for example, their dietary needs, understanding just so many things about parrots. And so there certainly are, in my perception, in my book, so to speak, there certainly is a difference between a starter parrot and a parrot that is going to be quote-unquote advanced. Now, when it comes to those starter parrots, budgies, also known as parakeets, and cockatiels are known and can be found the world over. Those are two very fantastic species that are very easy to bond with. Their bites aren't bad. Sometimes they don't even bite. Their attitudes are very sweet and loving. They bond well, and their needs are not near as high a maintenance as some of the bigger birds. Generally speaking, the smaller the bird, the easier it's going to be to have them as a starter pet. Next, I would say the green-cheeks are really, my vet had said that they're the third most common species she sees in her practice. And so I would say that indeed they are a wonderful starter parrot as well. And then again, after that, I would go by size. The smaller ones tend to be easier, and the bigger they get, the attitude gets bigger with them. Thank you for joining me in this blissful video. Let me know if you agree. If you don't agree and you think that there's no such thing as a starter parrot, make sure to tell me why, because otherwise I don't really understand, and maybe you've got some insight that I'd love to read about. Thanks, and I will catch you in the next feathered video.